Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey, how's it going? Oh, that's a big difference. What if I talk like this? Ian, are you there?
Hello, everybody. I'm just wondering, can you guys all hear me? Anybody in chat can hear me? Because I was screwing around with my audio settings, and I don't know if Brian can hear me in Discord or if the stream can hear me. I think there might be an issue right now, some kind of technical problem. Oh, I can hear him. Oh, Dan Cox. Hey, bud.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dan Cox?
Yep.
Brian, can you hear me? I don't think Brian can hear me.
I don't think so either. Brian, can you hear me? I don't think Brian can hear either of us.
I don't think Brian can hear either of us. Yeah, that's weird. Well, we're live on stream right now. Yeah, we can hear you. You can't hear us. This is gonna be like the super most entertaining one-way podcast that has ever happened.
I'm not hearing anyone else talk right now. I think it's my settings, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably. I'm gonna message him and be like, "You should go to the podcast and hear the things that we're saying."
Ah, there we go. Now I'm hearing you.
Okay, we can hear you.
Now you got it. Can you
So
hear
I've
me
been
now?
sitting here talking to myself like an idiot this whole time.
No. I've heard you the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, my Discord can't hear you guys though. I need to adjust something.
Okay.
That's a whole different problem.
I know. Okay.
We like to layer our problems like an onion.
Done. Okay. Now I'm good. My side only takes 3 seconds because I'm a professional. So.
My side's good because I'm just a guest. So.
And a professional.
And a professional. Hey, you're a professional. Don't take that away from yourself.
Professional jackass.
Hey, you know what? We all are a little bit of jackasses sometimes. I mean, we're all special in our own little way. I had 3
So you
viewers.
just want to know for your time schedule, how close do we have to keep this to just an hour, or we have to keep this really tight?
It's not super tight. We can go, like, we can move a little bit on it. But if we could keep it moving, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. All right. I just wanted to see if you if you're even pushing for 45 or whatever you might need. But that's great to know.
If we go a little bit over, that's fine. Just not as long as we're not doing like an hour and a half or 2 hour sort of thing.
Gotcha. Perfect. And are you streaming them as well? So it's gonna be one of those things where you're gonna start, and then we'll kind of do our thing after.
I'm already streaming, so this is the great thing about the internet is I can. Nobody cares. Most people like the little bit of candid chatter before the podcast. That's why they're usually here. Except I had 3 viewers before, and now I'm sitting at 0, so it doesn't really matter all that much. People just enjoy the little bit of extra content, the background, if you will. Oh, thanks, Chris, for liking the stream that you're on.
Yeah, no problem. It's like my strategy in Resistance. If I'm on the team, I like it.
Exactly. Oh, I need to bring my volume on my music down just a smidge. All right.
So what my plan was to kind of keep things on track is that I would only give a slight little review of my first game before I pass it on to you, Ian, for your coverage, and then again we could just keep to you two then for the remaining rounds, just to kind of keep that time schedule okay.
Well, I mean, like I said, we can keep it going, and keep. I don't want to force the movement either. As long as we keep it moving, we'll be fine. If we go to like an hour 10, I'm not gonna be crucified or anything. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And Chris, do you have any time restrictions?
I have no time restrictions.
Perfect.
I do apologize if you can hear my dog running around like a crazy person, however, as he just came out of the bath and is trying to dry off at warp speed.
And that's usually when they just like start doing circles and rubbing their whole entire body like worms down the carpet. That's what mine does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have carpet on our main level, so he just tries to find whatever soft spot he can find. So like the rug at the front door, or the chair, or whatever.
Your leg,
yeah. Okay, I'm ready to go whenever you guys are. If you want to start off, Brian. I mean, everyone that isn't here is watching and listening. So,
all right. Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoulda Boosted. We are on episode 40, and this is going to be another event review. We had basically a month-long tournament where we did a 49-point steamroller, 2 lists, and so I'm going to be talking about my stuff, but we have some more important people to be talking to. One of them is going to be my co-host, Ian. Ian, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Everything's going good. It's a nice weekend. It's good weather. It's a little chilly for March, but you know what? It's fine. How about yourself? How you doing, Brian?
It's you know what? I went for a nice date with the wife. We actually went out to a restaurant, and I got to have some wine, so I'm in great spirits right now.
Those spirits bring up the spirits.
Absolutely. We also have a guest with us as well, Chris, Mr. Dan Cox himself. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Another exciting night with the 2 of you, gentlemen.
Perfect. So, as we said, we're going to be going in and talking about this event. I already explained that it's going to be a 49-point steamroller, just to kind of keep things a little bit smaller, a little bit more interesting as we're growing things up. But I guess maybe to kind of first talk about what you guys took. Ian, what were your lists and why did you take them?
Okay, so I took Viros 2 with 4 Griffins, Discordia, Imperatus, 3 Arcanist Mechanics, and a Shail Arcanist, Uno Shail Arcanist, and my second list was Gorshade 4 with an Aspis, a Chimera, a Hydra, an Arcanist Mechanic, a Hermit, 2 list healers, and 2 maxed units of House Eloir Swordsman with the standard and Officer. Love the list. I really wanted to play 4 Shade a lot because of the new the Ret dynamic update, and Viros 2 is probably one of the best casters, arguably one of the best casters that we have in faction, because he is our brute force caster, as I've been coined saying what it is. It's just you can't drop a shooting list into this pairing very easily, or if it is, it has to be very specific, and that's what I wanted to do.
Perfect. So it sounds like, you took a strong faction, you took some strong casters. Chris, what did you do?
I went with a slightly different approach. I actually reached out to you, Brian, and said, can you randomize me a faction and a couple casters that I could play? and I cheated a little bit because you did roll me Circle and Grail 1, and I believe it was Kaya 1 is what you rolled me. And I couldn't figure out anything exciting I wanted to do with Kaya. I tried, I built some lists, I messed around with it, and there was just nothing else I could find. So I thought, who else is really fun and kind of obscure to try out in Circle? So I ended up with a Grail 1 and Mosar 1 pairing. In the Grail list, I took Devourer's Host, because there's some cool models I wanted to try out in that, including Kogan the Exile. I had Lord of the Feast, a couple Primal Archons, a Boilmaster and Spirit Cauldron, Bridget and Call, and some Death Wolves. And then I took a Storm Raptor on Grail. In the Mosar list, I also started with this Storm Raptor on my caster. And then I took I was playing in Secret Masters, so I took just a whole bunch of minion stuff. So I had a couple Dunian Archons, a couple Primal Archons, 2 Boilmasters and Spirit Cauldrons, and a Gatorman Bokur and Swamp Shamblers.
Awesome. And this has been a thing that's been kind of like been going on for a while in this local league that we're having here, in that people have been wanting to do this. It's like random factions, random casters. Do you know why this started, or?
I think part of it is just the fact that the Wartable platform gives you more options to just try out whatever you want. And while we've been playing a bunch of these different smaller scale tournaments, things go quite quickly, and usually you can look for opportunities to play something you might not be entirely familiar with at that point. So what better opportunity than to just kind of mess around with something super fun and randomize what that new thing is going to be.
Perfect. Well, I actually got to play in this one too, and all the other ones I've just been the TO, but this one I actually got to play in, so that was fantastic. And even though I was running 2 lists, the one was just really a false one I was never going to run anyway. The only list I really cared to play was the one where it's the Gobber faction. I was taking Melvin and Mayhem. All I cared about was running Melvin and Mayhem and trying to learn that model. So, I mean, its battle group is a Gobber Tinker, but has 2 junior warcasters. One is Magnus 1, running 2 Nomads and a Talon, and the other one is Gaspy 4 with its own Nomad, and I also got an Anastasia and a Harlow. And the idea is just to rush up the board with that Magnus 1 feat, get in the way, and then just let Malvin and Mayhem do things. So just looking to have some fun in this event. So with that, maybe let's jump into the games. So Chris, how did your round 1 go? Who'd you play and how'd it go?
So first round of the tournament, I played Mr. Michael Bessem, and he had also randomized his factions, so that was kind of fun. He had ended up with a minion faction, and we ended up playing Barney 2 into Mosar, which was a very weird and unique experience. It was pretty fun because obviously Barney 2 has a significant amount of hitting power, specifically for himself. He can do a lot, but at the lower points levels, I was able to kind of skirt around with the bird and pick up some important pieces, and just kind of contest where I had to with Shamblers and hold him back with the Pillars of Salt until he finally went in with Barney. I didn't quite work the math out as well as I should have, and Barney was able to get on the Storm Raptor, kill the Storm Raptor, and then I was in a pretty bad position, but it took Barney his whole turn, basically his whole army to do it, and he was kind of standing out in the open. So he got Curse of Shadows from Mosar. I think maybe I put the spray attack into him, and then a couple of the pots. The 2 pots were kind of the good MVPs of the tournament for me. They were able to take him out.
Nice. All right, so you got the win for round 1. Ian, I think we're going to get to you right away here, but I think I'm going to jump in with my coverage of round 1. So I can't even remember who I was playing or what they were using, Basically, I got to go first. I rushed up the board. I have all these things like past the half line. My opponent played way too defensively, so I was just able to throw like my entire battle group in their face, guaranteed scenario win. And then they must have cheated or something because they killed all my jacks and my caster top of 2. So really weird. I don't know how I lost that game, but Ian, how'd your round 1 go?
So it's kind of funny when that that battle report that you just said. I have a little bit more specifics to it.
Okay.
What ended up happening is that my opponent thought that he could jam me to death and just score in scenario. However, what he did was just give me all of his pieces and let me kill him ruthlessly because he wanted to try this new model called Malvin and Mayhem, and it was like, oh, you better watch out, you're gonna get assassinated. And I sidestepped off him and killed his caster. So what actually happened is me and Brian had played in first round, and Brian at the very beginning, I wanted to play Force Shade, and he didn't want to play his slam dunk list into me. He wanted to play we voted into our chats and was like, hey, do you guys want to see robots killing robots? And chat was like, yeah, we want to watch Viros versus Magnus. I'm like, well, I did drop Force Shade and Brian dropped Ashlyn, which is kind of a slam dunk for the Ashlyn. And Brian's like, I want to play robots too. And I'm like, oh, it's your choice, Brian. Brian made the magical decision to be like, hey, let chat decide. Chat decided that we play robots. I went second. He went first. He feeded on the top of 1 and was almost inside my deployment zone with 3 nomads. And what was that other little light?
The Talon that had Death Ward on it.
Talon with Death Ward. He also had Gatsby and Nomad over on my left flank, and he forgot to when he finished his turn. Like I said, he was almost in my deployment zone and jammed almost all the zones and was going to be scoring on my turn super bad. He made a super big mistake though, because he didn't have the Nomad back in his zone. And he's like, oh, you mind if I take that back? I'd be like, no, I do, because it's not going to really matter because I watched all your activations. Malvin was sitting in this really, really nice spot. And Brian knows what Viros can do. Brian knows that he's a synergy caster, and I have concentrated power, so I can get my jacks up to ridiculously high pows. And he knows I have mobility and be able to see through clouds and forests. So I ended up taking literally half his battle group off the table. Between 3, I wasn't even done all my activations. I used 3 Griffins to almost kill 2 heavies. And then I used Discordia to combo slam it's not combos, man. Chain attack smite his linchpin, his little talon there that's gonna try and stationary Imperatus on the way through. And then after he smote that away 6 inches, I just cleaned up his heavy, and then Imperatus went, charged at POW Mat 11, POW 22 into Malvin and Mayhem. Did a boatload of damage on him, sidestepped into his caster, and then I think I had 4 attacks left to
something like that.
Yeah, something like that, to absolutely ruin his caster. And he had 4 focus on him, so it's like dice minus, what was it? Dice plus 3? What was his armor? Or straight dice? It was straight dice with your focus.
I know, something. I was super dead.
Yeah, it was super silly. I still had a focus left after swinging, so I was basically anything but to hit, anything but to kill on 4 attacks.
It was insane. I mean, I knew that Viros hits hard, and I knew that you'd probably kill everything in your face, but I thought that 2 heavies and an armor 20 light, where if you take a free strike you get stationary, you'd have to spend everything to kill them, and then I just went on scenario. But no, you just killed everything and my caster, so that was just okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it was one of those games where you're like, oh, that sucks. Be like, oh, that was a fast recording, thanks for coming out.
All right, so there's round one. So we got Ian and Chris with a win each, and then your boy Brian down on the fun tables.
Yeah, boy.
So Chris, round two. Oh,
No, I'm just saying, yeah, boy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chris, two.
boy.
Round two. Who'd you play? How'd it go?
So round two, I played a fellow by the name of Dorian, and the scenario was Recon 2, and he ended up playing Azazello, and I once again played Mosar because Mosar is the greatest caster in Circle apparently.
I love Mosar. He's so good. He's so neat.
He is definitely neat. I think the cool part about this game was Azazello was playing in, I think it's Will Work for Food, with the access to multiple archons. So he had a couple of primal archons, a couple of void archons, and maybe a Dunian or two. So he had lots of the archon models on the board. From a battle group perspective, I think he had some slower moving guys. He had a couple warhogs and the battle boar, and I think that particularly was probably the downfall of the match for him. Unfortunately, we compare archons to archons, being primals against primals, and I spent the first couple of turns eliminating the voids with the Storm Raptor, which seems like a big expenditure of points, but it's actually pretty worthwhile when, in my opinion, when you can take off the those pretty critical pieces. A couple turns in, Azazello goes and feats to get the extra armor, and at that time, I was able to kind of hold the primal archons in place with Pillars of Salt and Shamblers to make sure that they couldn't go anywhere, and then the Storm Raptor was able to just focus on the warhogs, which don't get anything from the feet, and then the rest of my army just kind of backed away. And at a certain point in the game, as is usually the case with Recon 2, I was able to sort of take control or take control of the right-hand side of the board, which allowed me to start scoring my flag and the right-hand zone. And even though I couldn't necessarily contest every turn or, block him from scoring on every single turn on the left-hand zone, I had more throwaway pieces at that point with Shamblers than he did. And I was just picking up pretty critical pieces every single turn, be it the primal archons after a while, or like I said, the void archons early, or the warhogs in between that. So it kind of came down to a certain point where the Storm Raptor was basically controlling the bottom of the left-hand zone, making sure nothing could really engage with it. And then Mosar and a couple archons were holding the right-hand zone, and it just for Dorian, it meant he kind of had to go all in on trying to remove the Storm Raptor. Didn't have a lot of pieces to accomplish it at that point. Azazello was not going to be in range if he wanted to make other attacks, because he had to Hunter's Mark the Storm Raptor in order for the rest of the pieces he needed to get there. But he sent those pieces in. They didn't kill the Storm Raptor. And then that was kind of the end of the game, as the few pieces he did send in were good. Like he had a Primal Archon at the end and the Battle Board, but they weren't like heavy hitting enough to remove a Colossal from the board. So it was a pretty grindy game. It was unfortunate that fortunate for me, unfortunate for Dorian that he lost the Void Archons early, because they could have made a significant impact on the game. But coming out of the gate, my dice were really good, and Storm Raptor was able to blow those voids off the board. So
yeah, Colossals definitely are a scary thing at 49 points. There's just not as much there to try and deal with them.
Yeah, and the Storm Raptor in particular is particularly hard to pin down and deal with. At any point level, he's probably one of, if not the most mobile colossal in the game, only competing probably with the Archangel. So he's hard to get your hands on, and when you can put salt pillars in front of him to even further reduce your ability to get there, or you have a giant unit of shamblers running in the way, it becomes very hard to track him down.
Yeah, usually there's a lot you got to chew through. You got to chew through a lot to get to him.
Yeah, and if he's taking damage, because I have the 2 Dunian Archons in the list, and you pick up a shambler or something on the way, well, now the bird is probably healing at least something. So,
or you're just straight up negating the damage rolls.
Yeah, so that's the weird part of the Mosar list. The I can't negate the damage rolls on anything super critical. I can only negate the damage rolls on 3 models, be it the Boker and the 2 Gatorman.
I guess. Yeah,
guys. The rest of the army is not living, or be it the Storm Raptor, not a warrior model. So that rule doesn't come into play a whole lot. But I actually think in every single game I played, it came up at least once when someone tried to kill the Boker early, or one of the Gatorman guys.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, I can jump into my round 2 game. I got to go up against Morgan, and this is fantastic. So far I've just been a TO in these events, and so there's a lot of newer players I've never met in person, and so I want to try and meet them during this time here, and Morgan is one of them from Lethbridge there. And so Morgan was running some Legion there with Thegrosh 2 and Lilith 3, dropped Thegrosh 2 against me, and this one went more the way that I expect, where, I get first turn, I rush up past the half point, he moves up a little bit more cautiously, I then throw everything into his face, he has a wonderful turn of killing my battle group, and then Malvin and Mayhem fly in and boom, put Thegrosh down 2 with an assassination. So that's kind of what I was hoping this list would do, where like, hey, my opponent loves it because they get to kill a bunch of my stuff, but then I get to go for the assassination or something cool after.
You got to feel what it was like on the other side this time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, great to meet Morgan, and hopefully I'll get to meet Morgan in person once we, can actually do that stuff.
Morgan's a great person. He's a great player. Like, honestly, he was one of my most enjoyable games last month. Not last month, but the month before.
What I'd add too is like, it's so refreshing, so interesting to see so many new players come out. As we've been doing these monthly events, and trying to play at lower points levels and play with stuff that's a little bit more interesting, or not just your regular 75-point game. Don't get me wrong, I love my 75-point steamroller game all the time, but I'm not the audience of people for 100% of games, and particularly in order to get people into it and get people starting, like a lot of the group in these events, it's so important to play something more accommodating, something more entry level, right? I almost said lower level, but that is certainly not the case. Just an entry level point.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Absolutely. Perfect. So, Ian, how did your round 2 go?
Round 2, I went against somebody cheeky that I play against in a semi-regular occasion, Kevin. Kevin was running Gareth 1 with in Defenders, and he ran a unit of Elwer Swordsman, a Eternae, which affectionately known as Nene, Morose, a unit of Archers, a Defender, and a couple of Arcanist mechanics to, give extra focus, make it a little more manageable. I dropped Viros 2 into him. It was a really entertaining matchup because he has a lot of movement shenanigans, and he had a lot of shooting against Viros. Usually Viros is like, oh, shooting list. Nom, 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 nom. Didn't work out as well because he had a lot of knockdown to be able to get those shots really placed around nicely. And all I could do is basically sit there, eat the shots until I can advance further up to get my hands on him. This game went to turn 5 with a good amount of piece trading going on back and forth, actually. I'm really impressed with some of his plays. Primarily the Elber Swordsman really going after my battle group and doing some good damage. I forget my own rules. Like, I have Elber Swordsman in my pairing, and I forgot that they have parry, so he can literally walk around my battle group and just be like, I'm gonna go in behind for non-shield armor attacks. what ended up happening is I was able to scalpel out the left-hand side out of getting rid of his archers and the and his Eternae with Imperatus, and Imperatus is just basically sitting there guarding, keeping everything in between, on the other side of Imperatus and Virus 2, because Virus 2 basically just shifted to my left flank as well to go clear out archers and just work my way across the battlefield from left to right, keeping synergy maxed out, contesting flags as much as I could until I could scalpel out everything. And his AFG was probably his MVP by far. It did so much work. And for being able to shoot into a not anti-shooting list, it was really damn good. What ended up happening is that we ended up going to turn 5, and I just happened to be able to score out a 10-5 win, which is like super unlike me. I don't do high scoring games typically. Normally I just like throw away models or look for like this super efficient scalpel to assassination, except he knew that and he played the player on that one, and he tried to keep Gary as far away as possible from anything that I could possibly put on him. Unfortunately, at the very end, all I had to do was kill Morose to basically score 4 on my turn, and take the win. Solid player though. And Gary, I had to play so cagey with Virus as well, because Gary has a 17.5-inch threat now. It's super long, super nasty, and I don't want to have Virus get touched by Gary at all. So with his CID, it is a good matchup. It was a solid game. So if you guys want to take a look at any of my matchups, I also have them up on my not on my Facebook page, on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, don't check out that one where we play. That's one's probably not worth watching.
It was a really good deconstructive chat after and before. I would highly recommend looking at that one, because it was really educational at the end when we kind of worked through all the different mechanics and our decision making on it, and kind of what our plans were. So I do recommend watching that one.
It's a great what not to do example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually some of the comments in there was like, oh, I didn't know that's some of the capabilities of Imperatus. I'm like, yeah, no, that's exactly, that was a textbook play from Imperatus. If you watch that assassination, you can do that too.
Awesome. All right, well, you guys are still looking great. 2-0 going on to round 3. Chris, who'd you play and how'd it go?
So in round 3, I played winner of last month's monthly event, I believe it was, Mr. Andrew McCorkle. He played Harby, and we played I believe it was Anarchy in that round. That sounds about right. It was I'm just thinking through it now. It was definitely Anarchy. So yeah, it was a fun game. I again played Mosar because I had been starting to enjoy him after a couple of games and thought he had some neat abilities. So I said he was playing Harby, and he had a list with some real heavy hitters in it. I think he had 2 units of bastions, a couple heavies, the bastion seneschal, so all the guys were healing all the time. So the list was going to be really hard to truck through. But what I had going for me, fortunately, was because he had a significant amount of heavy hitters in the list, he didn't have a whole lot of points for shield guards. So Harby was going to be pretty susceptible to the bird, so I had to stay a little bit safe. And B, Harby has a speed buff, but bastions are still decently slow, and he had Gravis in the list, but I could find ways with Pillar's Assault and Shamblers to block them in and control kind of where I wanted them to go. So in the early turns, we kind of walked up and positioned in the middle of the board. I was able to get some early damage on some bastions with the bird. I took the magical weapons objective, thinking I might need to hit a heavy early or something, but that never really came to fruition. And then as the game progressed, Harby, my goal was to spread the bastions out, to make them deviate away from Harby. So I had pieces on the far kind of outsides of the circle zones, which I knew Andrew was going to try and go for. Andrew was able to get up on CPs. He was up 1-0 going into his feet turn, I believe it was. And so that was a scary position to be in. But fortunately for me, I was able to use some pieces to contest. And then between the pieces contesting and some unfortunate dice rolls for Andrew, he was unable to score again. And he had the opportunity at one point to go all the way up to 4-0. And at which point, I don't know what would have happened in the game. But instead, he scored 0 points that turn and stayed at 1-0. And then, because Harby was kind of staying a bit safe, I was able to move the bird into a threatening position on the bastions on the right, Curse of Shadows them with Mosar, and pulse them all basically off the board. He responded by putting some heavies. I had a Primal Archon that was contesting his flag. And in order to kill that Primal Archon and get through the Pillars of Salt that we put in the way, he had to bring 2 heavies into that Primal. Fortunately for me, that was the turn that he was unable to get a whole lot done because of dice rolls. So he ended up leaving that Primal on 1, and it cost him a lot of resources to do so because it was also my feet turn. So those heavies weren't getting focus from power up. So he was spending the focus to get them there for charges and for boosting attacks and yada yada. But yeah, it was it was a little bit unfortunate for Andrew on that turn. And then the following turn after that, the bird was able to the Primal Archon knocked down both heavies. I Curse the Shadows one, and then the bird was able to just clean up both of the heavies. The right hand zone had basically been cleared out. Mosar was making his way that way, and then the Swamp Shamblers were just jamming themselves into the left hand zone as much as they could. There was a unit of Bastions out there, and they were just skirting around or driving themselves in droves into the defensive strikes so that I could just contest as much as I could on that zone. And again, use salt pillars to keep things from threatening range and coming out to the right. So the way it worked is because he only scored the 1 point. I started scoring the right hand zone, and I actually started scoring his flag as we kind of swapped, as he had the bastions on the left had creeped all the way to contesting range of my flag, and so. But at that point, he wasn't able to push any further through the Shamblers and through the pieces we were just putting in the way. He ended up losing everything on the right hand side that could contest, and I just kept scoring 1 point, 2 points at a time until finally the game ended at, I think it was 6-1. So
nice. Yeah, it definitely makes for an interesting game with where you can lock things down, the Shamblers and the Pillars of Salt. There's a lot of control there.
Yeah, just having the bodies, and part of the reason I took the two cauldrons was just to continue to push corpses into the Bokur. It turns out in lots of games, there's also the significant benefit of the Spectral Lash available to them. That helped, it helped my game versus Andrew, where I was able to pull Gade out of Harby's command range so that I could kill Gade. So that their offensive output was good for late game as well. But early on, it's just, how many corpses can I get into the Bokur to make more Shamblers, because there's nowhere else I get corpses from in my own army. So it's like, unless I'm getting them from my opponent, which I have 49 points, you don't get a ton of corpses from your opponent. You just kind of have to build it your own way.
Awesome. So my round 3, I got to go against another player that I was hoping to go against, Brenton, another player that I've never met in person, and so I was really glad I was able to face in this event. And Brenton was running some interesting minion lists. One was a Helga 2 list that had like Impalers and a Mauler, and then the other one was a Maylock list that actually just had like a bunch of solos in it. They were supposed to get super high armor. So in the end, he actually takes Helga 2, and so usual thing for my Magnus 1, Malvin, and Mayhelm, where I just rush up the board, and then it was this interesting thing where he would try and like hit and run against me, but then I'd be in a spot where I could clear the zone, score a couple, he would come in, kill off that Nomad, I can then kill what hit me, score a couple more, had an interesting dance on the other side there with the pig tanks and Gaspy's Nomad. But in the very end there, it was just a thing where the last turn where I need to get those last points to win, Malvin and Mayhem and Gaspy 4 fly in, they kill what they need to kill, I score my last points and get that one on scenario. But I mean, like, normally what that Helga 2 list is supposed to do is hit you hard, will you down with the Impalers, and then be in a spot where they can hit you and back away for a second alpha. But because I was so far up so fast, that meant that he was basically leaving the zones and letting me go for a scenario. So definitely an interesting thing to see, like how differently that plays when the line of battle is moved, another 8 inches than what you normally would expect. So there's that one. Ian, how about your round 3? Who'd you play? How'd it go?
I played against Nick Bargeman, and I played Gorshade into Iona. I know Iona. Iona at 49 points is just as scary as Iona at 75. However, Forshade actually has some really good tech into her, and because of the scenario, what I needed to do was basically block one zone and really force my way into the other side and take the other zone. It kind of worked out because he put the Tharn with Surefoot onto my left, onto the left zone, and then through that I couldn't really do a whole lot of damage to him because they're no knockdown, they're hyper regenning, they are tough, high defense, and what I was planning on doing is getting a feed out onto my own guys, let him come in and then defensive strike and then respond with a pretty good crackback, except he only ran his Tharn into me. So I'm like, okay, I'll take some mat 9 into defense 15 shots into him, except he's armor 20 because of feet. So it was basically like a whole lot of rain into a big brick wall that didn't do a whole lot of damage. However, on my right side, I was able to get my second unit of House Elwir swordsman into a blood tracker unit, and it didn't end well for the blood trackers. I was able to score every single turn on the right zone the minute I got that zone clear. So that was really good. At about the third turn, I had to start building cloud walls because I really screwed up and gave up my Hydra for a Brigade and Call, which wasn't really a solid trade. It cleared the zone and let me keep scoring, but it didn't really help me out in the attrition lead. He ended up getting his Warpwolf Stalker, I think is what it's called, onto my Harpy or Hydra and killing it, and then being in a position to assassinate my caster. Except I was able to knock it down and then stationary it outside of control area, which allowed me to like just be like, okay, I got a turn. I can keep him stationary to knock down. His spirit's out. He's not gonna be able to do anything. Okay, I have a Gnarlhorn I have to deal with now. I gotta get Gorshade to go over here and stationary and get him knocked down. He gets knocked down and stationaried, and then oh no, I have an Archon getting on me now. Okay, I have to deal with an Archon. I have to deal with the Stalker. I have to deal with a Gnarlhorn, and it was this really weird situation where my caster was basically doing triple duty to survive. I was stationary stuff and then hitting other stuff, and trying to control the elements through line of sight, while not losing my scenario advantage. And in the end, I did end up killing the Gnarlhorn and the Archon and the Warpwolf Stalker. Or sorry, I didn't kill the Warpwolf Stalker. But I did kill the Gnarlhorn and I did kill the Archon with Gorshade by himself. It was very, very hectic. It was very, very scary. I've never been in that position before where my caster's like, usually when you put your caster in a position like that, it's just a slam dunk. Like, okay, assassinate me. I'm going to move on and learn from this. But I was able to sit there and control what was hitting me at what time because of certain spirit being out or being knocked down and stationary. So he wasn't able to get enough fury managed to kill me. But at the very end, we did go to the bottom of turn 6, and he ended up clocking at the very end because of the amount of time that I spent doing really, really critical control maneuvers to get him to have to do a lot of different workarounds to get on my caster. So the score was actually 10-7 at the end. And it was just basically stopping as much as I could on that left zone and just scoring on my right zone as much as I could, as well as on my flag. So not the prettiest game. It was very, very good game, because I think I had 5 minutes left on my clock when he clocked out. In a 49-point game, that was it was a nail biter for me. He played it really, really well when I thought it was going to be a much different game because of caster advantage. It was I think that was probably my second favorite game of the year so far.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, as a TO, that's really interesting to hear, because for myself, I mean, this is the first tournament in the series where we actually used the clock. All the ones up until now, the clock was not part of it, and then for this one, it was added in. But you were given lots of time by NFL. I mean, like for 49 points, we gave you 75 minutes each. But I mean, obviously, it came up here. In general, in this event, did you find that clock was actually a big deal, or for the most part, was it just so much time that was just you're getting used to using the clock?
For me, Viros is such a consistent caster for me. I didn't find that clock was a big issue for that one. But for Gorshade's a new caster for me. I haven't used Gorshade really at all, and playing him was like, oh no. I'm like, I have a lot of bodies and I have a lot of mechanics I'm not familiar with. Like, using cloud balls isn't a familiar mechanic for me. Like, it's not as simple as being like, I'm going to put out 3 clouds and it just blocks line of sight. I have to make a decision on where these things have to be so they don't just get walked through or take advantage of their hit negatives. Plus new casters, I mean, generally it's more time intensive. How'd you find it, Chris?
Got
it. Yeah, I'd agree. I think, I put it the other way though, right? I think we asked earlier about, why people might play random casters, why people might do something new and different. And part of that is the fact that we haven't had a clock. So, you don't feel like you're super under pressure to have your list down pat. You don't know everything. So it allows you to explore things you may not have explored before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a cloud wall caster for you or something like that, right? So it gives you some additional advantages, which is nice. And I mean, we were playing with to your point, the 75-point clock at 49 points. So it never actually came up as a win condition for me in any of the games I played, but it was there. So it was good to remind yourself of the fact that, oh yeah, that's right, there is a clock here that we have to watch move along, right? I think we've played some games which have been, less points than 49, and I feel they've probably taken as long or not longer than the full 75-minute clock, and that can be frustrating at times. So I would always like, I like having the clock. Yeah, I like having the clock to defer people away from that, because the second you put it in place, then you avoid that from happening. But having a huge clock like 75 minutes on 49 points still gives that flexibility to experience new things and try out new stuff that you may not feel comfortable with if you were under more pressure. So
Mike Blarg actually makes a comment in Facebook chat. He's doing random as well because he can, and he's way too indecisive. So it's clock has also becomes a manageable thing for him as well.
Well, to keep that in mind and make sure I'm always giving enough clock, keeping in mind that there's a lot of people playing random and new casters. So good to know. So moving on to round 4, both of you are 3-0, and surprise, that's why you're both here. You're playing in the last round on the top table. So, I mean, just to make sense, I think maybe I'll jump in first with my round 4 game, and then you guys can get onto the main stage here. But my round 4 was up against Michael. He is actually the press ganger of another local city here. But I mean, interestingly, even though this is a person that I've known for years and years, we almost never get to play because if I'm driving over to that city, he's probably running the tournament. If he ever comes to our city, I'm probably running it. Whenever we meet in the middle, it always just seems that we, never end up to play against each other. So it's really cool that we got to do this. He was doing random casters, and he actually got Omedeos and Gaston too. And so he decided to go with Gaston. And so this was a howler list with some like armor 20 tough howlers. And, of course, some shooting in there, a couple of mules to try and do some crit devastations. But really the way that the game goes is that I go first, run up the table. He crit devastates some of my stuff a little bit back, but no, not really a big deal. Magnus 1 stays then way far back as I try and slowly starting to get into him and starting to kill some howlers. And then the biggest thing here is that I'm able to get my Talon, so it's engaging both of the mules, and this is where normally this works, not against Ian, but normally I'm going to have that there, trying to get rid of this armor 20 thing with stationary, so you can't just take a free strike and walk away. Basically lost him that turn. And so the turn after that, then I was in this spot that even though Gaston was able to shoot down my Tinker and use that soul to get +3 defense, I was in a spot there where Malvin and Mayhem could actually charge him. And one of the reasons why I actually wanted Malvin and Mayhem with Magnus 1 is because I have Iron Aggression. So that means they're charging for free. They're getting boosted to hit rolls against, their targets. And so that made it pretty reasonable. Plus, if I ever get a crit, then they're knocked down and it's over. So I basically had to use my other pieces like Gaspy and the other Nomads to clear the last Howlers out of the way. Charged in, taking 1 free strike, didn't lose anything important, and then, was able to put Gaston into the dirt. So really enjoyed Malvin and Mayhem over this event. I had made my own custom extreme one the month before, and I can't wait to use it on the actual table. But who cares about this? We care about the top table. So you two share it, pass it back, and say how this game progressed.
Chris,
before we move on to that, I'm just gonna say, I think I can see your Malvin and Mayhem from Calgary. The giant ball on his fist is it just shows up in my skyline for some reason. I don't know.
It looks so good. I love it. I'm glad I was able to help support that one in an essence.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, you want me to start here, Ian, or do you want to start us
You
out?
are far better at telling these battle reports because I'm looking at my YouTube channel and refreshing my memory. I'm seriously trying to blank out at the 45-minute mark for me. I'm still trying to just put that one out of my mind. So you go ahead. Okay. Yeah, you go ahead.
Why don't I take us up to that point and then we can go from there because we both know what happened at 45 minutes.
Yeah,
so.
let's go through it.
Yeah, sounds good. So, early game between you and I think you won first turn, right? So, pretty standard. You run up, I run up. We both get into threatening positions, but I think we're both trying to stay out of, threat range in the early game. You have a significantly harder time to do that for at least one piece of my army, with the bird being 21 inches of threat range. But I'm also watching for Imperatus, and I don't want to pull a Brian, cough, cough, and
It's so true. It's the best. I don't care. That was the best. It was one of the best parts of March for me.
So I think like I said, early game we're just positioned.